Good afternoon. This is Kathleen Drew, Chair of the Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council, calling to order our January monthly meeting. All of those of you who have microphones out there that may be open, please check your microphones. We're getting some feedback in the room, and make sure that they are off. Ms. Grantham, will you please call the roll?
Certainly. Department of Commerce.
Kate Kelly, present.
Department of Ecology.
Eli Levitt, present.
Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Mike Livingston, present.
Department of Natural Resources.
Lenny Young, present.
Utilities and Transportation Commission.
Stacy Brewster, present.
Local government and optional state agencies for the Horse Heaven Project. Department of Agriculture.
Derek Sanderson, present.
Benton County, Ed Brost.
I'm here.
For the Badger Mountain Project, Douglas County. For the Watoma Solar Project for Benton County, Dave Sharp. Washington State Department of Transportation. The Assistant Attorney General.
This is John Thompson, Assistant Attorney General.
Thank you. Administrative Law Judges, Adam Torum.
This is Judge Torum. I'm here.
Laura Bradley.
This is Judge Bradley. I'm here. Also, I've heard from Judge Gerard that he's having difficulty joining the meeting, so he may not be with us yet.
I'm in
Okay,
now. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, Dan Gerard is present. Thank you. For EFSEC staff, Sonia Bumpus. Amy Hofgemeyer.
Amy Hofgemeyer, present.
Amy Moon.
Amy Moon, present.
Patty Betts. Stu Henderson. Joan Owens.
Present.
Dave Walker.
Dave Walker, present.
Sonia Scavland.
Sonia Scavland, present.
Lisa Massengale.
Lisa Massengale, present.
Sarah Randolph.
Sarah Randolph, present.
Sean Green. Lance Caputo.
Lance Caputo, present.
John Barnes.
John Barnes, present.
Osta Davis.
Osta Davis.
Joanne Snarsky.
Present.
For the operational updates, Kittitas Valley Wind Project.
Eric Malbardis, present.
Wild Horse Wind Power Project.
Galbraith, present.
Grays Harbor Energy Center.
Chris Sharon, present.
Chehalis Generation Facility.
Mike Adams, present.
Columbia Generating Station.
Marshall Schmidt, present.
Columbia Solar.
Owen Hurd, present.
And do we have someone here for the Council for the Environment? Hearing none, Chair, there is a quorum for the regular council, the Horse Heaven Council, and the Watoma Council. Thank you.
This is Stacy Brewster. I move that we approve the November monthly meeting minutes.
Kate Kelly, second.
I'm sorry. I'll start again. I have two changes to make. The first one is on page 8, line 21. The word professional should be facility. And on page 52, line 3, before the word walk, it should say, I will. Are there any other changes for the November monthly meeting minutes?
Chair Drew, this is Kate Kelly. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. We're just having a little trouble hearing you sometimes. Page 20, I have two changes on page 21 for some reason. The top line, line number 1, effective should be executive.
Thank you.
Line 14, the word court should be short.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all.
Are there any other changes for the monthly meeting minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the November monthly meeting minutes as amended, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes are amended. I'm going to take a step backwards and ask for approval of adopting the agenda for today's meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting?
Lenny Young, so moved.
Thank you.
Stacy Brewster, second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the agenda for today, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, the agenda is approved. Okay, now moving on to the second set of minutes as I get there on my screen. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the November 29th special meeting?
Kate Kelly, move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Second,
Eli Levitt, second.
are there any changes to that set of minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes for the November 29th special meeting, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, moving on in our agenda to the facility updates. Mr. Melbardis with Kittitas Valley Wind Project. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, EFSEC Council and staff. For the record, this is Eric Melbardis. I think you asked us to spell that this time, M-E-L-B-A.
Mr. We have you on the list that we will send to the court
Perfect.
reporter. So, yes.
Okay. So yes, I'm with EDP Renewables for the Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project. And I have nothing non-routine to report for the period.
Thank you. Moving on to Wild Horse Wind Power Facility, Ms. Galbraith.
Hi, thank you, Chair Drew, council members and staff. This is Jennifer Galbraith with Puget Sound Energy representing the Wild Horse Wind Facility. And I have nothing non-routine to report for the month of November or December.
Thank you. Grays Harbor Energy Facility, Mr. Sharon.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, council members, staff. This is Chris Sharon, the plant manager, Grace Harbor Energy Center. For the month of November, I have no non-routine items to report. I will note though that we were limited to 1x1 operation for 2 weeks due to transmission line maintenance on the Paul Olympia SATSUP sub or transmission line. In the month of November, I have no non-routine items to report.
Thank you. For Chehalis Generation Facility,
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair Drew, EFSEC Council and staff. For the record, this is Mike Adams, Plant Manager at the Chehalis Generation Facility. For the month of November, I have no non-routine items to report.
thank you. Columbia Generating Station,
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, council members and staff. For the record, this is Marshall Schmidt reporting for Columbia Generating Station. For the month of November, I only have one update. That is on the 17th, Energy Northwest received approval from EFSEC for the Columbia Generating Station annual air emission source registration, and that's for 2020 and 2021. For December, the only item I have to update is that on the 1st of the month, Energy Northwest received the inspection report for our 2022 Columbia Generating Station synthetic minor air inspection that was conducted back in October. There were no issues or findings identified in that letter. That is all that I have to update.
thank you. For the Columbia Solar Projects, Mr. Hurd,
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, council members, and EFSEC staff. This is Owen Hurd reporting for the Columbia Solar Projects. For the month of November, we had total generation of 385 megawatt hours for the Pensman project, 356 megawatt hours for the Camas project, and on the Erdinger project, we're troubleshooting inverters, and substantial completion is expected in late January. Thank you.
thank you. Yes,
Sorry, Chair Drew. If I could, wanted to step back just a bit. We do have a line item on the agenda for an update for the council on the Columbia Generating Station NPDES permit provided by Ms. Moon.
okay, thank you. And that was, for the record, Ms. Hofkemeyer.
Correct.
I was following the sheets in my packet and not the agenda, so my apologies there. Ms. Moon, and this is the NPDES permit update. Go ahead, Ms. Moon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council Chair Drew and council members. For the record, this is Amy Moon, EFSEC staff member, providing an update on the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES permit at the Columbia Generating Station. The last time there was action taken by the council on the NPDES permit was in 2019, and the council members have changed quite a bit since then, and I want to provide you and the public with a brief summary of the NPDES permit and permit program. Energy Northwest operates a nuclear-fueled steam electric power generation plant known as the Columbia Generating Station that discharges to the Columbia River. EFSEC regulates the discharge to the Columbia River under the NPDES permit program. This regulatory authority warrants a brief explanation beginning with the Clean Water Act. The Federal Clean Water Act, first enacted in 1972, established water quality goals for the navigable surface waters of the United States. One mechanism for achieving the goals of the Clean Water Act is the NPDES, administered by the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. The EPA authorized the state of Washington to manage the NPDES permit program in our state. The Washington State Legislature accepted the delegation and assigned the power and duty for conducting NPDES permitting and enforcement to EFSEC for facilities under EFSEC authority. EFSEC worked with the Washington Department of Ecology and issued the current NPDES permit on September 30th of 2014. This permit was modified twice, on February 8th of 2016 and again on March 19th of 2019. Although the NPDES was issued with an October 31st, 2019 expiration date, EFSEC administratively extended the permit on September 13th, 2019, after accepting the NPDES renewal application on August 6, 2019, in accordance with the Washington State Administrative Procedure Act, which is the revised Code of Washington 34.05.422 subsection 3, and the Washington Administrative Code 463-76-061 subsection 4. Today, I want to let you know that EFSEC has been working with Ecology on the new NPDES permit and expects to have the draft permit and fact sheet ready for presentation to the council in February. Does the council have any questions?
Are there any questions from council members? No. Thank you. Okay. Next item in the next order on our agenda is Horse Heaven Wind Farm, Ms. Moon.
Thank you, Council Chair Drew and council members. Again, for the record, this is Amy Moon, an EFSEC staff member, providing a draft environmental impact statement or draft EIS update on the Horse Heaven Wind project. The draft EIS was issued December 19th, 2022 for a 45-day comment period ending February 1st of 2023. Copies of the draft EIS are posted for public review on the EFSEC public website, and electronic copies were distributed to public libraries near the Horse Heaven Wind project or proposed project area, as well as to the Washington State Library in Olympia. Public comments may be submitted to the EFSEC comment database or by U.S. mail to the EFSEC mailing address. After the comment period closes, EFSEC will review the comments received to determine if additional information gathering and analysis should be done to improve the environmental analysis for the final EIS. Does the council have any questions?
Any questions from council members?
Stacy Brewster. Just a question of how long you expect it to take to go through the comments?
Well, so since we're still in the comment period and we don't know how many comments or the content of those comments, that's hard to answer. We do have a contractor that'll be working on sorting the comments and tabulating and figuring out what topics we have and whether or not additional information gathering will need to be done and what additional analysis will have to occur. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
It's a vague answer, but
I expect so.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the Goose Prairie Solar Project updates. Ms. Randolph.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, council members and staff. For the record, this is Sarah Randolph, the site specialist for the Goose Prairie facility. EFSEC staff received a draft of the initial site restoration plan, or ISRP, from the certificate holder, which is available to you in your packet. Staff have reviewed the draft in consultation with our independent contractor and our Attorney General and determined that the plan complies with the Facility Site Certification Agreement, or SCA, in regulation, with Washington Administrative Code, or WAC 463-72. The ISRP is required to be approved by the council per WAC 463-7230. At this time, staff are recommending that the council vote to approve the ISRP as provided. EFSEC staff received 2 comments in the ISRP. Neither comment warranted a change in the draft ISRP as we received it. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for staff? Hearing none. I would ask the council, seeing and having a chance to review the ISRP or Initial Site Restoration Plan, is there a motion to approve that plan?
Lenny Young, so moved.
Thank you. Second?
Kate Kelly, second.
Thank you. Are there any comments? The plan seems to me to be in good order and certainly covers what is required both in our rules and in the site certification agreement. So I commend it to you. All those in favor of approving Goose Prairie Solar Initial Site Restoration Plan, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? The plan is approved. Thank you. Badger Mountain project update, Ms. Hofkemeyer.
Thank you, Chair Drew. Good afternoon, Council. Staff have been working with our contractor in the initial stages of drafting the environmental impact statement. On December 27th, EFSEC staff sent a second data request to the applicant in support of the draft EIS. Staff have also received additional studies from the applicant as coordinated with EFSEC staff and contracted agencies of expertise. Are there any questions?
So this is the preparation of the draft EIS phase that we are in now for Badger Mountain, correct?
Correct. EFSEC staff are working with our contractor to draft the sections of the EIS, which will then be compiled for issuance later this year.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Whistling Ridge. Ms. Hofkemeyer.
Thank you, Chair Drew. Again, this is Amy Hofkemeyer for the record. EFSEC staff are waiting for the certificate holder to submit the remaining materials for the FCA amendment request. There are no further updates at this time.
On to the next project, High Top and Ostria. Ms. Hofkemeyer.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the council for their attendance at the conditional use criteria meeting last Wednesday. At that meeting, there were 4 speakers. EFSEC also received 4 written comments, one of which was received verbally as well and was one of the 4 commenters who spoke. These comments included recommendations on fire risk mitigation, recommendation on use of local labor, and concerns about use of agricultural land and environmental impacts, and input on the EFSEC review process for this project. I'd like to take a moment to review the timeline of this project to date, highlighting the opportunities that we have had so far for public comment. On April 7th, EFSEC received the application for site certification, or ASC, as well as the letter requesting expedited process. On June 1st, EFSEC held the initial public informational meeting to receive public comment, followed by the land use consistency hearing to receive testimony from the public. Both of these meetings were held virtually. On July 19th, at the regularly scheduled council meeting, the council reviewed and approved an extension of the expedited processing determination by 10 weeks. On October 18th, the council voted to approve Order 884, determining the proposal to be consistent with local land use ordinances in place at the time of application. Public comment was taken during the meeting on this council action. On October 1st, EFSEC issued a SEPA threshold determination of mitigated determination of non-significance, or MDNS, followed by a 14-day public comment period. On October 28th, EFSEC issued the revised MDNS. On November 2nd, the council went on a site tour and viewed the Hightop and Ostria sites from a nearby vantage point, at which the public was welcome to attend. With the land use consistency determination made by Order 884 and the revised MDNS issued on October 28th, the council voted to approve the applicant's expedited process request by Order 885 on November 15th. Council action was open for public comment ahead of the November council meeting. On November 29th, the council reviewed and approved the request to extend the timeline for the recommendation to February 22nd. This action was open for public comment ahead of the council meeting. And then finally, last week, EFSEC held the conditional use criteria meeting to receive public comment on conditions related to the conditional use criteria as identified in the Yakima County Code that could then be included in a site certification agreement draft. Are there any questions from the council on the project activity to date?
Are there any questions about the timeline and the actions the council has taken or public comment opportunities? Go ahead.
Thank you. In consideration of our review of the application, the issued MDNS, the determination of land use consistency, and the granting of expedited process, staff would like to recommend that the council direct staff to prepare an order with a recommendation of approval, a draft site certification agreement, and associated documents to be reviewed and voted on at the February 15th council meeting.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members? Is there a motion to direct the staff to draft an order recommending approval of the project for the February meeting?
Eli Levitt, motion to direct the staff.
Second?
Stacy Brewster, second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on this motion? A lot of work has gone into reviewing the application, working with agencies who have had concerns on the project that have been actually worked through in terms of the mitigation. That is all part of our package as we go forward. And I commend this project to you and encourage a yes vote. I will ask for a roll call vote. Clerk, will you call, Ms. Grantham, will you call the roll for the EFSEC Council, which is also the Hightop and Ostria Council?
Yes, no problem. Chair Drew.
Aye.
Department of Commerce, Kate Kelly.
Aye.
Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Aye.
Department of Ecology, Eli Levitt.
Aye.
Utilities and Transformation Commission, Stacy Brewster.
Aye.
Department of Natural Resources, Lenny Young.
Aye.
The motion is approved. I will point out to the public that the order will be drafted before the next council meeting, and you will have time to send in your comments to us about that draft order. So that's the next step. We haven't finalized the order, so the opportunity will be to comment on the proposed order before the next meeting. Thank you all. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is the Watoma Solar Project update. Mr. Caputo.
Thank you, Chair Drew and council members. For the record, my name is Lance Caputo. I'm the EFSEC staff assigned to the Watoma project. To state briefly, we are in the stage of the process where we thoroughly review the application and then request supplemental data. In October of 2022, EFSEC sent the applicant a request for additional information. We received the applicant's response to data request number 1 in mid-November. On the 27th December, a second request for additional information was sent. However, due to the holiday season, the applicant requested a 45-day period to respond. We anticipate a reply by 15th January 2023. And in the meantime, we are continuing to work with the applicant and our contractors on this project.
Thank you. So those data requests are to help with the staff completion of the determination of significance for the project. Is that correct?
Correct. They fill in missing gaps in the application so that we can make a proper SEPA determination.
Thank you. So the next step will be the SEPA determination, which is made by Sonia Bumpus, our EFSEC director, and then from there, that information will come back to the council.
Correct.
Thank you. Any questions? And we also had a site visit of Watoma as well. So I think that's helpful for us as we consider that project. Moving on to Hop Hill Solar. This is a new application that has just recently come to EFSEC. Ms. Hofkemeyer.
Thank you. For the record, this is Amy Hofkemeyer. On December 22nd, EFSEC staff received the application for the proposed Hop Hill Solar Facility. The applicant is here today to give a brief introduction to the project, more detail on which will be provided at the public informational meeting. Staff are currently working to schedule this meeting and will update the council and the public as details become available. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Hearing none, I will hand the floor over to the applicant to introduce themselves to the council.
Thank you, Chair Drew, council members and staff. Really excited to come here and talk a little bit about the Hop Hill Solar and Storage Project. But real quickly, just as a matter of introductions, my name is Chris Whistle-Tyson. I lead development here for Bright Night in the Pacific Northwest. I'm based just north of Seattle. And I'll let Ron introduce himself.
If you can spell your name for
Sorry about that.
our court reporter.
CHRISTOPHER. Then I have a hyphenated last name, WISSEL-TYSON.
Thank you.
And I'm Ron Kisana, Kiecana. I'm the Chief Development Officer with Bright Night Power. And thank you, Chair Drew and EFSEC staff for the opportunity to introduce Bright Night and the Hop Hill project today.
Thank you.
And we'll move quickly to the next slide and just a little background behind who we are in the company Bright Night. We're an independent power producer. I'd say young and in current formation. We were formed in 2018, but I'd say old in pedigree and experience amongst the team. We are the next iteration of a company that was started by Martin Herman called 8 Minute Energy. 8 Minute from around 2010 to 2018 was the largest private solar developer in the United States and really changed the way we looked at large utility scale solar projects. He built projects in Southern California, Nevada, and Arizona that set price records at the time and really showed that large solar projects can be competitive with fossil fuel projects. But around 2017, 2018, he started coming to the realization that if we're going to truly decarbonize the grid, we're going to have to move from as available renewable technology, when wind blows or when it's sunny, or when hydro is running with a large runoff in the spring, to something that's more dispatchable, like a traditional power plant. And that's why he formed Bright Night. And we are a purpose-built team for that goal. I'll get a little bit into that next slide, but just real quick, we have a U.S. portfolio of around 21 gigawatts, 2 gigawatts in the Asian Pacific. We have 2 financial partners. CBBIB, the Canadian Pension Fund, is a partner in all our Western projects. And we also have GIP, Global Infrastructure Partners, which is one of the largest infrastructure funds in the world, and they support our U.S. portfolio. One just point of clarification, we are an IPP. We intend to develop, build, and own these projects for up to 40 to 50 years. We are not trying to sell the project before construction or right after construction. That's not how we're built. And so I think it does change a little bit how we do business as a company. Stakeholders, neighbor relationships, just the design of the plant and thinking about our ratepayers and customers, us as power buyers, is very important to us when we have that kind of vision. You want to say something? Good.
I was just going to take the next part here. And just moving along, we're now a team of about 110 people with operations here in the U.S. as well as over in Asia Pacific. 85 people are located here in the U.S. and we have a strong team here in the Northwest. They're located here. 6 people reside here in the Northwest. We're a big believer in being very close to the customers and to the markets which we aspire to be a part of in the future. If we can move on to the next slide here, I just want to touch on this is something that is very different and is part of Bright Night, and this is a proprietary software platform that we have developed here at Bright Night, and this supports our focus on structuring clean power products for our customer. And so as Chris mentioned, there is a difference between clean energy and clean power. You're going to get clean energy when the sun is shining, wind is blowing. We focus on clean power and providing that power when the customer really values it and needs it most, and it can most be beneficial from an operations perspective for the customer and for the transmission system. So our Power Alpha platform very quickly is able to very quickly analyze immense amounts of data across intermittent resources and identify where the gaps are. So we look for opportunities to combine intermittent resources to provide structured, more valuable clean power products to customers. Sometimes this does involve using energy storage. Other times it may involve just layering in more intermittent energy such as wind, solar, possibly even hydro. So again, very powerful tool, core to Bright Night and a big part of what we do here as a team here in the U.S.
Move 2 slides. I'll talk a little bit about the Hop Hill Energy Project. This is a PVS 500 megawatt project in Benton County, Washington, Central Washington, around 5,000 acres within the fence line. And we actually have 3 different potential points of interconnect and interconnect applications with BPA. We have 4 main goals with the Hop Hill project. One is to provide low cost and reliable energy in an area that it could complement already existing resources. And so that's the Columbia River dams and really what's called the Northwest Hub, as well as other resources such as nuclear to help meet growing needs in the region as well as the state. 2, we want to avoid expensive and lengthy infrastructure projects. I'm sure you guys know, but we are extremely constrained here in Washington and Oregon as well, mostly around the BPA system. There's just no transmission left to bring a lot of new projects online to meet our renewable goals. If you put for example, a project maybe closer to Spokane, Eastern Washington, you can trigger upgrades on the east and west side of Washington, as well as Portland and in Eastern Oregon. And those upgrades can take 10 to 15 years, and it's a big impact on everyone that's experiencing those upgrades. So we looked across Washington's BPA system and really tried to find a location where we can inject a large amount of renewable power without triggering those long upgrades. So it allows us to come online in 2 to 3 years and deliver to customers and help meet renewable goals and not trigger all these projects across multiple states. Number 3, minimizing natural resource impacts while maximizing, community benefits. So these projects bring a lot of tax revenue to communities, but we heard kind of 3 main concerns, and we've been talking to Benton County over 2.5 years. I mean, one is visual, another one is impact to productive land, and a third is pristine habitat, impact to pristine habitat. So we really tried to find a site that was a happy medium between all these impacts. We wanted to avoid any irrigated land. We also wanted to avoid those higher value habitat areas, and wanted to seek the project in a location in which it was shielded from the rest of the community as much as we could. So that's how we picked this site just south of Rattlesnake Hill, and it's on low productivity grazing land. In number 4, one thing that's very important to us is co-use, and we'll talk about this in 2 slides, but we wanted to maintain the productive nature of the land. Even though this is low productivity grazing land, we really think that we can work in concert with traditional agricultural practices. And so for this site, we are doing sheep grazing across the entire project, and it will probably be the largest project, we think, in the Pacific Northwest to pursue this type of agrivoltaics. And I'll talk about that if we can go one more slide. Just real quick on a little bit more about the micrositing of the project. You guys understand, I think, why we came to this area. And if you look on the south or bottom of your screen there, you can see the white areas are solar panels. And so there was a lot of design considerations once we narrowed into this site. One was natural resources. We actually talked a lot to WDFW. One about habitat that borders, I'd say, to the north of the site, but actual species that they were concerned about. In this case, it was the ferruginous hawk. And so we actually moved all our panels from the west to the east to try to avoid the ferruginous hawk's prey habitat in that area. Cultural and archaeological, we did transect surveys, and we've hired, we think, very, very good local consultants that understand our stakeholders and really helped in that stakeholder outreach. Water resources, there is some water in the draws between the sites, but we'll really be able to avoid those impacts through our crossings. Visual impact, which I already talked about a little bit, and then just topography and existing agricultural operations. So with all these design considerations or constraints, we came up with this layout that we included in our permit. And I'll move to the next slide. I know we don't have a lot of time. This is one thing I really wanted to talk about. I mean, because we really think that the industry, this is where the industry needs to go, and it really can be a part of agriculture. And so we're really focused on agrivoltaics as a company. Our owner Martin has 2 regenerative farms. It's a big focus of ours, and we think this is the way we're going to have to do business and really work in a symbiotic relationship in the future. There's a agricultural Oregon State professor that said solar panels are farm equipment and the sun is a farm resource. We like that, and we think that's a good goal and maybe where we can move. But we do think we already complement existing traditional ag practices. And so for this site, we're pursuing sheep grazing, and there's really good research locally about the advantages of doing this. There's a study specifically on sheep grazing, same type of landscape. In low productivity grazing land, they see up to about a 300% improvement in water conservation just by the shading. By doing that shading, you get twice the plant growth, and it's because on the eastern side of the Cascades here, we are water limited, not sun or photon limited. And what does that equal? Actually about a 10% increase in carrying capacity of sheep on the site. So not only does this work well with an existing ag practice, it actually improves it. So we really think it's a great model going forward. We're also very excited. This property was a historic sheep operation. Since the landowner originally homesteaded the land and expanded it, they raised sheep for years and ran them up into the mountains. There was I'd say a little bit of a crash in the wool market a couple decades ago, and now trends are changing again, and it's starting to make more sense. And so we're really excited to bring this a sheep operation back to the property. and he will actually own and run this. So it's quite exciting. And last, we want to support agrivoltaics in the future. I mean, this isn't just us in this project. We are committed to really supporting the industry in making sure that we're doing business in a way that works well with our local communities. So we're actually funding a research project through a local university. We'll announce it soon, but it's really on the impact of co-use on this project and actually nutrient transport. Without getting into details, sheep like to sit under the panels, and so they do certain things there. So a lot of nutrients is concentrated under those panels, and there's a lot of interest on how that nutrient flows throughout the property. That's about it. We do have a quick video, if we do have time, about the project as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing. We do have a power sale commitment in place for 280 megawatts of the 500 megawatts that's being shown here in the application, and that power will, clean energy power will be used for future Washington State clean power requirements.
Can we pause for a minute? I'm seeing messages that there is not audio for those who are not in this room.
Chair Drew, we may need to make the video available afterwards. I believe there may be an issue with playing videos through Teams where the sound doesn't come through.
We apologize to everyone who is participating in this meeting. There is a glitch that we cannot play the audio from the video. So I think what I will do is pause here and ask council members, is that the end of your presentation? And we'll watch it afterwards, and we'll ask others also to watch it afterwards after we conclude our meeting today. So we don't spend the time looking at a video that no one else can see. I mean, hear. So are there questions from council members? Can you tell us? Oh, go ahead, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you, Chair Drew. This is Kate Kelly from the Department of Commerce. I just have a question for the proponents. I thought I saw on some of the materials that this was going to be, that 5,000 acres was going to be fenced in. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So that's a lot of fence. What's the implications on wildlife?
Yeah, I mean, so we were working on a number of things I kind of talked about on the constraint side. You know, we were trying to move away from where we thought there was valuable prey habitat and start trying to avoid impacts on wildlife. Currently, the site is grazed by a couple hundred cattle, so it is pretty well impacted. But there is wildlife, I'd say, especially on the northern edge, and so we tried to pull the site down from that. And as well as looked at, you know, a lot of our other projects, we look at migration corridors and try not to, you know, create a bottleneck in our projects. But we also have this, you know, competing operation here, you know, with sheep, and we do need to protect them from predation. So we're going to work with the landowner through this whole process to really understand where we need fencing and not. We think there is some more fingers and kind of migration pathways we can add to the site. But really our main goal was to try to avoid where we surveyed wildlife or knew there was historic presence of wildlife or their prey habitat. And so we tried to move away from that and get more into those grazing areas.
And so just to confirm, the sheep would graze there year round and not go up into the hills.
Yes, yes. They would graze the project year round, mostly during, I mean, the grazing season, spring, summer, and then a little bit of fall, and then we will have to supplement their feed in the winter.
Thank you.
And with some of our projects, to follow on that theme, the fencing is raised a little bit to allow for the smaller critters.
Absolutely. We in Idaho, we've been working with BLM on some sage-grouse friendly fencing to essentially allow them go under, and that's kind of a standard we wanted for these projects. We are faced with an interesting situation here where there are coyotes and we have sheep, and so we're working with the landowner on, what does that look like? Can we have wildlife friendly fencing? Can we move that fencing? And so that is something we're still working on the project. But as far as the application, we kind of want to take the worst case scenario and say we're putting this fencing down to the ground, and then we're going to work and see what we can do.
See the comments and
Yeah.
Issues that might arise,
Yep.
and work with that. Thank you. Are there additional questions from council members? I wondered if you could share with us who is the power off-taker.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's not public yet.
Okay.
It will be sometime here in 2023.
Okay, appreciate that. Understand. Thank you for your presentation. We look forward to viewing the video and also to hearing more about this project as we review your application. Moving into our good of the order, and the next item before us is the third quarter cost allocation. Ms. Bumpus?
Chair Drew,
Ms.
Ms. Bumpus asked that I please cover the cost allocation for the council meeting this afternoon.
Thank you. I was actually reading my agenda. Go ahead, Ms. Hofgemeyer.
Thank you. So on the screen, you'll see the cost allocation for third quarter, which is January 1st through March 30th, 2023. And the allocation is as follows. Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project, 4%. Wild Horse Wind, 4%. Columbia Generating Station, 21%. Columbia Solar, 4%. WNP 1, 3%. Whistling Ridge Energy, 3%. Grays Harbor 1 and 2, 8%. Chehalis Generation Facility, 7%. Desert Claim Wind, 3%. Goose Prairie Solar, 4%. Horse Heaven Wind, 15%. Badger Mountain Solar, 6%. Cypress Creek Renewables, which is the High Top and Ostria project, 6%. Watoma Solar, 6%. Hop Hill, 6%. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you for that report. For the good of the order, we do have some new staff members to introduce to the council. Ms. Hofgemeyer.
Thank you, Chair Drew. We do have a new addition to the EFSEC staff. A new siting specialist joined us on January 3rd. Joanne Snarsky is joining us as a siting specialist, and she will be taking the lead on the Badger Mountain project.
Thank you. And we also have Ms. Osta Davis with us. If you would like to introduce yourself and tell about your role to the council.
Thank you, Chair Drew and members of the council. My name is Osta Davis, and I'm EFSEC's new legislative and policy manager. I will be keeping track of all of the bills that go through the legislature that affect EFSEC and make sure that EFSEC's perspective is considered in the legislative process. I wanted to introduce myself and offer up myself as a resource to the council if you do have any questions about specific legislation or the legislative process, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to provide an update there. Thanks.
Thank you. And welcome to both Osta and to Joanna. With that, there's no further business to come before us, and the meeting is adjourned.